All right, welcome back to the program. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Here's a quick reminder. You can watch the show on the go. Join our YouTube and Facebook live stream. Also follow us across our social media platforms to stay in touch with all that we have to offer. You can also visit our website at trusttv.com for the latest news and documentaries. All right, let's talk a lot more about the only thing to talk about in this country, which is the fight and the struggle for a new national minimum wage, a new and improved national minimum wage. You might have seen the document of that agreement following the meeting between the organized labor and the federal government's delegation a fortnight ago, when they were looking at plans to help Nigerians understand where we are with the new negotiations, especially in relation to the nationwide strike action that grounded the Nigerian economy from Sunday midnight to Tuesday. And of course, in the aftermath of that, the neck of the organized labor met and decided to call it off. But beyond that, the delegation that sat with the labor met with the president yesterday, Tuesday, and gave him a feedback. And then we understand that the president has directed the Minister of Finance and the Economy to come up with a template to help give Nigerians a clear picture on what will come next as these negotiations continue to unfold. Now, we've been talking about the impact so far. What does this new positioning look like, especially as far as solutions to this conversation is concerned? So let's speak to a policy analyst who's going to join us virtually. Chuka Adewale is joining us from Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, virtually to help us navigate some of these talking points and shed light on some of these developments. Good morning to you and welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Right. I'd like to start, from a personal point of view. We've been talking to some of our viewers this morning with regards to the impact of the national blackout occasioned by this nationwide strike action by the organized labor. What was it like for you coping for those 2 days with everything grinding to a halt?
I think it was needed. Excuse me. At some point, I think it was needed. Like, it was a reality check for most Nigerians to know that, okay, things are not going the way they should, and a little inconvenience would not hurt if the end game is to, get the targets. Get the goal, get the targets and the goal, set. That a little inconvenience will not hurt. So the blackout was something that I think I stood with. I understood and I fully supported. Because the way the country is going right now, a little bit of inconvenience shouldn't be an issue for us if you look at the bigger picture.
All right, Chuka, which of them would you rather I call you? I was wondering if you add Waziri and become Wazobia, because
right.
Your name seems to be a nexus between every part of this country. But seriously, what do you make of the optics since these conversations have been up? The way the government have gone about it, the complaints from labor that they are not taken seriously. 1 minute they are in the SGS office, the next minute is the chief of staff talking to them, the day after it will be people from the National Assembly. Did it appear like the federal government, for instance, was making any serious moves, to really meet the demand of labor, as it were?
No, it didn't. No, it didn't look that way. For me, I see the federal government, I see the whole government structure as I see them taking Nigerians for a ride. I see them taking, I think the NLC as well, for the last couple of years and last couple of administrations, they've not really been serious in their attacks and their chores. So that for me is it's a reflection of how the government takes them. Because if you're serious, what you're doing, and you mean business at every point, you come out and say, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, and you keep to your word, you stick to it, the government will take you serious. But when you come out and say this and then you're saying another thing, and they know that, okay, at the end of the day, all we have to do is call you at the back and like, hey, what do we do? How do we settle you? And what? So for the president to be talking today and the NS, I wonder, why would the NS, what is the NSA, what is the National Security Advisor doing in the labor meeting? What is the business of a National Security Advisor with labor? Such what I mean. So there's a whole lot of disjointed, what's the word for it again, and it just shows the lack of seriousness, and on the part of the government, and to a large extent on part of the NLC as well.
Yeah, but let's talk about the buy-in of the larger population. Do you think Nigerians are on board with this? Because we've also seen a polarization between those who don't want to go through this, difficult period of, course correcting or addressing the gaps that exist with regards to purchasing power, for instance, where the organized labor is saying, listen, this is what Nigerians deserve, this is what we think Nigerian workers need to survive the current economic climate going forward, because what we're going to have to work with for the next 5 years will be quite telling, especially looking at the current inflationary trend. Do you think Nigerians are on board with what the organized labor is pushing for?
I think a lot of Nigerians are in support and are on board with the Nigerian Labour Congress, because, truth be told, it doesn't look like there's any ray of sunshine at the end of the tunnel. It looks like we're in for a long ride for the next 4 years, and if we can, like I said initially, if we can forfeit a little bit of pleasure or a little bit of comfort to get the target, to achieve a targeted goal, I think that should be something we should key into. But speaking to a lot of people, listening to people, reading views on Twitter and listening to people talk, a lot of Nigerians are in support. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she was like, "Oh, she's not happy with the fact that NSS called off the strike. She feels they could still push for more." And push to get more out of the government, than easily just call off the strike, because the government has agreed to, like, okay, let's reach a compromise. But generally, I think a lot of Nigerians are in support. I think.
Talking about whether these strikes are enough or not. We run a $500 billion economy. If you shut that down for 2 days, you take 2 days worth of $500 billion. It gives you a sense of how much we have lost in this country, and the contagion effect, But do you also think that the kind of communication that we have received, especially from the part of government, has in any way helped their case? Because, you and I know that, beyond the optics, it is practically unimaginable, for instance, for government to meet labor at 490. The government is thinking of a number of things. There are those of us who hold the strong view that you would rather a very strong economy with inflation trending at single digits, with interest rates coming down so that companies can take loans for expansion and create the necessary jobs, and to increase purchasing powers to allow households, in turn buy off these companies, than having an addition in your take home that ends up not taking you home. But do you think the government, has communicated effectively enough, to assuage this negotiation, that even Nigerians to say, we would rather deploy energy in the side of the economy rather than giving you an income that would end up not getting you anything from the market?
I don't think so. To be honest with you, I feel this government does not really know why it's in power. They've got nothing to offer. I'm sorry to say, but when a lot of Nigerians never saw they never saw this coming. They felt no one could be more worse than Buhari. Sorry to say, no one could be more worse than, no government could be more worse than the 8 years we've had, the last 8 years we've had. But now we've come and see somebody who's stopping the chart at, unbelievable margins. But then I look at realistically, we all know that Labour asking for 400 and how many thousand for minimum wage doesn't look realistic when you look at current situation of the country and inflation and everything. But I was listening to the TUC president speak yesterday, Festus Osifo, and he mentioned something. He said that figure was just was the figure to get the attention of the government to understand that, okay, bearing all indices, this is what should be. But then realistically, we know that it can't happen. But then can we just have something that it just goes to show, we have something that's close to this, Okay, let's do like a reversal. Let's do something like a reverse and say, okay, The people in power, the senators, they were earning millions and millions and millions. What do you mean? What millions for doing nothing? Why, why not let's do a swap and let them be the ones to go home with the 400 and whatever, or the lower minimum wage and whatever. I mean, really, that is what majority of Nigerians actually is saying right now. But like I'm trying to say now, realistically, yeah, the 400 and something is not really realistic. The 60,000, the government has decided to say, okay, 60,000, and it could be 60,000, it could be 61,000, it could be 62,000, but then it's still nothing. It's like nothing compared with the inflation that we currently have in the country right now. It's nothing. It's not. It can't do nothing. You can't even buy a bag of rice as it stands. So I just feel, and then the government coming. They've not really assuaged Nigerians. We don't hear from the Minister of Information. We don't hear from the NOA. There is no mass publicity to reach out to the masses and say, hey, this is actually what we're trying to do. Hey, this is what we need to achieve. This is what we're trying to achieve. It's like everybody, it's disjointed. And that is why Nigerians are scared, are afraid. They don't know how they're going to survive for the next 4 years unless a miracle happens.
We could talk about the dysfunctional relationship that Nigerians have with their leaders at several points in time, which I believe has been years in the making, especially under the current democratic dispensation. We've seen the quality of that relationship decline over the years. It's always at its best during the campaign season, where we seem to be on the same page with regards to what our problems are and what we need. But after that, we're back to the same old relationship of them being oblivious of what Nigerians are going through. But let's also bring in the National Assembly into the conversation, because at the 11th hour, they tried to stave off this nationwide strike unsuccessfully. But after it was called off, the Senate President was quite scathing in his remarks about what the organized labor was doing, some of the unions that took part in that nationwide strike. He called it economic sabotage, the shutdown of the national grid, which to some is indicative of where they usually stand. We've shown some of the graphics there about some of the earnings of the Nigerian senators, and they want to counter this argument to say that they're not one of the highest paid group of lawmakers in the world. But looking at where we are right now, do you think that the political leadership in the country, not just the federal government, but even our lawmakers who are supposed to be the voice of the people, are on board with regards to what Nigerians are going through and what it will take to get us out of this conundrum?
No, they're not. I feel sad about the reality of things right now. I feel sad that we've got a legislative that is far, what's the word for it now? That is far apart from the masses. There is no connection to the masses at all. For the Senate President, I have no words for him. I feel I have no words for him. I feel I just don't want to say what's in my mind, but he should repent. That's the word I should use. He should try and seek the face of God and actually and ask for forgiveness, because he is, he takes Nigerians for a joke. That's the way I see him. How can you come out and say shutting down the national grid is national sabotage? The amount you're earning is not national. It's not a national sabotage. The whatever excessive the wardrobe allowances and the whatever allowances you're earning is not. You finish as a governor for 8 years. You're back in Senate again, collecting so much money, and But when you look at the Senate President talking, and you see the way he talks, you just know that this guy doesn't have any regard for Nigerian. You see the way he talks. You just see the way he is. You could see the disdain in his face, in his conversation, the way he takes, the way his conversations are actually light. There's no weight to whatever he's saying. Okay. So it's really scary. I'm
listening to you, and I'm beginning to imagine what exactly goes through the minds of Nigerians when they listen to the Senate President talk. And just making a deduction from your comment, you seem to be saying we probably need to redefine exactly what sabotage means, or probably expand the scope.
You also get a sense of this trivialization of really serious issues.
Oftentimes, that is what it is.
The president, during the May 29th commemorations, appeared before the joint sitting of the National Assembly. It was a serious, solemn moment where most Nigerians are only going to hear the president speak for the very first time about his 1 year in office. And, you know, I think the leadership of the National Assembly watered the whole thing down and made it just about the national anthem that they were revisiting, which is quite apparently nostalgic for most of them, even though they don't remember the words.
Somebody said to me that we needed to know how much it cost this country to get the president move out of the villa to the airport. It's so much logistics, it's so much, you know, in terms of cost, to move the president into the National Assembly just to recite the national anthem. At a time, like you rightly mentioned, where we needed
people
to
are
get,
unable to put food on the table.
a sincere appraisal of the last 1 year to say, hey, if you will borrow my words, we understand what has happened, as he has always told us, but these are the practical steps that we are taking. Give me 90 days and we would be able to deliver ABC and XYZ. But Chuka.
So, yes, I'm with you.
Yes. So the point I wanted to make now, going forward, we now have the strike suspended for 5 days. The president should be receiving whatever template it is they are coming up with today. We have tested the 2 days of shutting down, as it were. What do you expect in the next 5 days? How do you want this government to drive this conversation that would elicit a positive response from Labour that would not bring us to a point where we have to shut down this country again?
Okay, I think for me, for one, I feel the presidents, the executive should actually understand that as it stands, they're actually in a dicey situation. This is like more or less a Mark or Ma situation for them, because Nigerians are really going through a lot right now. Literally, Nigerians are going through a lot right now. It's very difficult for a lot of people. When you talk to people every day, when you check your messages, you know how many people are trying to, you know, soliciting for help. Things are really bad. But now back to the president. I feel the presidents, the executive rather, they should call themselves to order. They should have a sit down and think session, you know, and like, okay, where are we now? What does it look like? What's it looking like right now? You know, is it looking palatable? Is it, you know, and then from there they can now decide, okay, how are we going to proceed from this point? But for Labour, you know, negotiation is actually a science, it's an art, you know, and I feel Labour has the upper hand right now as it stands. I would want the Labour executives to, you know, really to hold on to that power they've got, because right now they've got the government by its, by its balls, and everything. And for this next couple of days, they should go back to the round table, sit down, and come up with realistic points and agendas and present it to the government and say, hey, this is it. We're coming from Nigerians. This is what we feel. Yeah, you might not be able to get everything right now, but to give Nigerians a sense of, okay, it's not as bad as it's looking, or it's not going to be as bad as it seems right now. You know, can we cut down on some things? Can we do some things and make it feasible for the plain ordinary Nigerians on the streets to see? You know, anything other than that, I feel we're on a very long thing, and we're still going to be on a long thing for the next couple of years. And I don't see the NLC. So, I mean, even if they call up the strike, trust me, in the next couple of months, the NLC strike is going to come up, because there are so many issues right now pending in the country that needs to be sorted, especially when it comes to the masses and the general public. You know, because right now it just seems as if it's the people in power who are benefiting everything, who are enjoying everything. They don't care about people who are out there on the streets. They don't care about we the masses. It's just about them, how to enrich themselves and their privies and their whatever. So, but right now, I feel the NLC should they have an upper hand. That's just how I say it, and they should make sure they make good use of the upper hand they've got.
Right. Okay. Chuka, the next 72 hours or so would be quite telling about what comes next. Whether we're going to go back to the same old tactics to get the same old goal achieved, or perhaps we're going to come to a compromise, because whatever comes out at the end of the day is definitely going to be a compromise. The government doesn't obviously want to pay anything more than 60,000. Neither does the private sector. And the NLC, or the Organised Labour entirely put together, does not want to take anything less than what they're demanding. However, there is still room for compromise. Thank you most kindly for joining the conversation. Appreciate your analysis and insight and contribution to this conversation. Hope to speak to you soon. Thank you so much for your time. Chuka Adewale.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Chuka Adewale,
Thank you so much.
From Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, giving us his take on some of these developments as we discuss the suspension of the nationwide strike as negotiations continue between the organized labor and the government regarding a new national minimum wage. The template is set to be out between today or tomorrow, whatever the case may be. This is an ongoing development. Let's take a quick break now. When we come back, it will be time for us to take a look at the papers. It's been a dry past 48 hours for the newspapers or the news media generally because of the inactivity. However, there's still something to report with regards to certain developments. More on that in just a moment. Newspaper review is up next.